Extraordinary. Yes, millionaire CEO's autistic son shocks everyone on unexpected blind date. Disconnect revealed. Daniel tightened his grip around the steering wheel. The evening air, infused with the polished scent of wealth and expectation, wove its way into the car as he approached the opulent venue of the gala. The shimmering surface of the marble exterior resembled his father's ambitions, flawless but oppressive. Driven by years of yielding to his mother's insistence, he arrived, feeling the weight of scrutiny from every angle. His father's perfect facade loomed large in his mind, draped in tailored suits and loaded with expectations. He was not just a millionaire's son, he was a straitjacket of hope and disappointment. As guests welcomed each other with hollow smiles, Daniel felt like an imposter. Conversations bubbled around him, indiscernible laughter and murmurs about stocks, trends, and power moves. He stood rooted in place, surrounded by flashy cars, golden cufflinks, the whole world pretending to care, while he wrestled with the paralyzing fear that no one could ever see him. The delicate threads of autism kept him at a distance from the Pyrrhic battles of social interaction. He longed for connection, but was marked by a label that turned people into cautious strangers. "Daniel, you remember Mr. Kaufman, don't you?" His mother nudged him, her voice sweetened with urgency. Her effort to ensnare him in superficial relations left him breathless. "Say hello." As he mustered a smile, he felt the familiar impulse to withdraw. Each sentence tucked away deeper the truth of who he was under the weight of titles and wealth. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The imminent dread crept in as Daniel's mind wandered away from the gala's opulence. His thoughts darted to Sarah, the waitress he'd met at the diner, with freckles dancing across her nose and dreams of artistry carved on her hands. They shared laughter over milkshakes, an island of authenticity in a sea of pretense. But the moment his mother suggested the blind date, dread gnawed at him. Could someone like her even accept a life cloaked in prestige? And how could he ever reveal the truth? As he drifted back to reality, the very mention of Sarah pinched his heart with delight and fear. The stakes felt insurmountable now. The facade he craved to shed would soon be his armor forged from years of sparkling pretense.
The joy and urgency from their arcade encounter echoed in his mind, a stark contrast to the elite gathering at which he felt utterly lost. Every forced smile now flickered like flickering neon, drowning his heart in uncertainty. When Sarah looked at him, it was with eyes that locked onto his soul, not the glittering image of millionaire expectations. But in that moment, that shared spark came with peril. What if his father learned of her? The thought twisted his stomach like a vice. Torn between his father's rigid ideals and the warmth he craved from Sarah, he felt the noose of loyalty constrict. In the long shadow of the gala, Daniel stood alone, blood racing, yearning for a connection amid a crowd that could never truly accept him. Would he dare embrace the life he desired, or remain hidden behind expectations? At that precipice of choice, one thought resonated. Could he redefine what success meant while trembling on the edge of losing everything he had discovered? Daniel's thoughts spiraled as the evening droned on, a blur of smiling faces that felt like statues cast from the impenetrable mold of wealth and status. He could hear the jazz band serenading the crowd, but the music felt distant, a mere echo of another world untouched by his insecurities. The weight of expectation dragged on his shoulders as he surveyed the towering guests around him, each more polished and composed than the last. He realized he was not merely an observer. He was part of a carefully curated tableau, yet he manipulated no strings. His mother's incessant chattering about potential connections and business prospects faded into a murmur. Each mention of futures planned and power ties forged reinforced the shackles of resentment he felt toward her decisions. When he looked around, curiosity flickered inside him. The desperation to break free from this gilded cage, to carve out his identity, almost overruled the fear of the outcome. He caught sight of Mr. Kaufman again, the formidable businessman whose grip over the industry was only rivaled by his iron will. The expression on the older man's face was a mixture of interest and appraisals, dissecting Daniel like a specimen. Was it pity? Disdain? Daniel's pulse quickened. He was determined to resist the judgments in those calculating eyes. Forcing himself from the manicured safety of conversations originated from obligation, he slipped outside toward the balcony, the cool air hitting him like a splash of clarity. He leaned against the railing, the moonlight bathing him in a soft glow, muffling the gala's essence just enough for him to collect his thoughts. In the rhythm of his heartbeat, he found a sliver of resolve, a temptation to grab his phone and text Sarah, but he hesitated. The luxury of unfiltered connection felt like a risk too great at this moment. Yet the contrast was jarring. In the diner, their laughter, fueled by spontaneity, spoke of simple desires and unpolished dreams.
His fingers danced over his phone screen, summoning the words to express the chaos brewing inside him. Would she understand? Their worlds were galaxies apart, and the gravity of their orbits might render him a stranger. But what if he allowed their light to intersect? What could become of him if he chose authenticity over expectation? The thought occupied his mind with a fierceness that elevated his pulse. It was unsettling yet liberating. He envisioned a life defined not by the facades presented to the world, but by genuine connections. His decision bloomed. A commitment to meet Sarah ignited an unfamiliar adrenaline within him. He typed out a message, his fingers hovering above the keys, a mix of fear and excitement jolting through him. "Hey Sarah, would you be free to meet up again soon? I'd love to see you." The rush of sending it was exhilarating, yet the apprehension returned in floods. What if she rejected him once she learned of his family's expectations? What if it overwhelmed their connection? In that potent moment of anticipation, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He fumbled to retrieve it, the apprehension gripping his chest like a vice. It was a reply from Sarah. "Absolutely, I'd love to. Can't wait." The thrill of her words lit a fire within him, but uncertainty still loomed larger than before. Could he truly carve a path between these two realms, one of affluence and expectation, the other of genuine human connection? He felt the challenge boiling inside, the dualities of his identity colliding in breathtaking conflict. Returning to the gala, he knew he faced consequences for this new path. One glance at his mother's searching gaze told him she sensed a shift, a rebellion he could no longer suppress. The evening sparkle dimmed as Daniel navigated through the swirling crowd, a heartbeat louder than laughter. He felt hopeful yet aware of the storm waiting on the horizon. Would he have the courage to confront the expectations that tried to chain him to his father's vision, and instead embrace the risk of living authentically along Sarah? With that question lingering, his heart raced, a new kind of fear infused with excitement as he edged closer to the truth that awaited him. The following morning unfolded with a quiet intensity, a contrast to the thunder of emotions from the previous night. Daniel sat at the breakfast table, surrounded by the familiar sounds of clinking silverware and casual conversation. His father's booming laughter echoed through the dining room, chasing after some business anecdote, while his mother perused social media, her fingers scrolling aimlessly. Daniel felt like an intruder in his own life, a fish out of water, while his heartbeat thudded in his ears, reminding him of his resolve to break away from this preordained path. Thoughts of Sarah floated through his mind like a mantra, steadying his resolve even while the mundane morning rituals threatened to suffocate his newfound determination. "Daniel!"
"You're awfully quiet today," his mother chimed, glancing up from her phone. The implication of her words felt like an invitation, yet the chains of expectation wrapped around him tighter. Would he dare to voice his aspirations, to break the facade that he'd reluctantly donned? "Oh, just thinking," he replied, masking the tumult within him with a polite smile. He glanced out the window, where the sunlight bathed the world in a golden hue, and an impulse surged. What if he could summon the courage to share his true self with his family? Yet doubt crept in, pushing him to retreat. How could he introduce the notion of seeing Sarah, let alone the possibility of stepping outside their network of influence? In the secluded world of their wealth, dreams and desires were meant to conform. The unease lingered as he finished his breakfast. He had just enough resolve to pull out his phone and send another message to Sarah, this time suggesting a specific day and time to meet. It was a small step, almost trivial, yet it felt monumental. After lunch, Daniel headed to the local park, craving the space to think. He found a bench under a sprawling oak, its leaves whispering secrets as they danced in the light breeze. The vibrancy of the park and the laughter of children ignited a longing for connection that transcended his gilded constraints. Sitting there, he allowed himself to confront the deeper conflicts lurking beneath the surface. As he remembered Sarah's laughter, he began to question what it would mean to embody authenticity. He longed for the simplicity of their conversations, the ease with which they connected, unfettered by society's expectations. Could he rely on that connection to leap into the unknown? He convinced himself that if he could just get to know Sarah better, perhaps she could help him navigate this tumultuous landscape.
His phone vibrated again, and his heart jumped. Sarah had replied, "I'm so glad we can meet. How does Saturday sound? Any ideas for where?" A warmth blossomed within him, transforming uncertainty into excitement. It opened a floodgate of possibilities. In that moment, Daniel recognized that he wouldn't only be exploring the uncharted territory of a budding relationship, he was also entering a self-discovery phase, where every interaction with Sarah would help him define what he stood for, away from his family's suffocating grasp. He replied with a suggestion for their meetup, his heart racing as if he had just taken a step off the edge of a cliff. But beneath the apprehension lay the thrill of new beginnings, an acknowledgement of his potential to reclaim the narrative of his life. As Saturday neared, Daniel found himself wandering through the labyrinth of self-doubt and apprehension, balancing two worlds on his shoulders. Each day felt like a test. Would he be able to maintain his resolve, or would the weight of his upbringing drag him back?
His pulse quickened at the thought of facing Sarah, and in an unforeseen moment of clarity, he understood that connecting with her might indeed be the first step toward dismantling his carefully curated identity. Standing up from the bench, Daniel felt a sense of purpose flooding through him. The time had come to face his internal contradictions, his desire for freedom, and the overwhelming pull of his heritage. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, he felt an undeniable call. The breakthrough he sought was not merely about breaking away. It was a confrontation with the fear of living authentically, a challenge he was finally ready to take head-on. Would he rise to embrace this newfound identity, or would he allow the currents of expectation to sweep him back into the shadows? The answer loomed larger than ever as the weekend approached, bringing Sarah and the moment of truth closer with each passing hour. Daniel awoke on Saturday with a mixture of exhilaration and trepidation coursing through him. The sun streamed through his bedroom window, illuminating the space and casting elongated shadows of his belongings on the floor. There was an odd comfort in his familiar surroundings, yet he couldn't shake the sense that today was going to irrevocably alter the course of his life. He quickly dismissed the nagging voices of doubt that urged him to stay hidden within the suffocating embrace of family expectations. Dressing with purpose, he chose an outfit that reflected a glimpse of his individuality. A casual button-up paired with jeans that felt a little too tight for a comfortable afternoon, but stylish enough not to raise any eyebrows. This decision, albeit small, felt like a rebellion against the tailored suits that defined his father's world. As the clock inched toward the time he was supposed to meet Sarah, he felt the butterflies in his stomach transition from anxiety to anticipation. He had stumbled upon the realization yesterday that he didn't need to mold himself into someone else to impress her. He grasped the raw emotion pounding in his chest. It was his authenticity that attracted her, not a carefully crafted persona. Arriving at the cafe, Daniel entered the charming establishment cautiously. He scanned the room, noting how the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the sound of quiet chatter and clinking cups. It was vibrant yet soothing, a stark contrast to the muted conversations of his home. In a corner booth, he spotted Sarah, her warm smile and bright eyes lighting up even the dimmest corners of the cafe. His heart raced as he approached her, and for a fleeting moment he hesitated. Could he actually put into words the depths of his internal battle? The weight of familial expectations felt tangible, but looking into her eyes, I felt emboldened. With each step, I realized this was far more than just a date. It was an opportunity to peel back the layers of my guarded self.
"Hey," he greeted, attempting to sound casual despite his pulse quickening. "Hey, I'm so glad we're finally doing this," she replied, her eyes sparkling with genuine warmth that made him feel seen in a way he hadn't experienced before. As they settled into easy conversation, Daniel felt a wave of relief wash over him. They shared laughter over their choice of quirky drink names, the initial tension slipping away. But as they sipped their drinks, he couldn't help but feel the flickering flame of vulnerability lighting up within him. "What do you do outside of school?" Sarah asked, genuinely curious. The question hung in the air, a gentle invitation. He deliberated, weighing the risk of stepping outside the realm of safe responses. Would sharing his love for art and design reveal too much? He took a deep breath, knowing that this moment aligned with his aspirations for honesty. "Well, I dabble in painting and sketching," he confessed, surprising even himself with the ease of his admission. "It's something I've always enjoyed but never really shared with anyone." Her eyes widened, genuinely impressed. "That's incredible. You should show me sometime." In that moment, he realized sharing his passion was a small eruption of liberating potential. The walls he had built began to tremble. Encouraged, he pressed forward. "I've been thinking of pursuing it a bit more seriously. I know it's different from the typical route expected of me, but As Daniel spoke, he felt a sense of growth stirring within him. This connection with Sarah offered more than just companionship. It challenged him to confront the rigidity of his upbringing, to redefine his identity beyond societal constructs. "Different can be good, you know," Sarah said, her voice steady. "It's what makes life richer." The conversation flowed effortlessly, but in the depths of his mind lingered the familiar shadows of his upbringing. Could he navigate the balance between his aspirations and the expectations that loomed over him? As the afternoon wore on, Daniel found himself excusing doubts and reveling in the enchantment of discovery, of himself and of Sarah. With every shared laugh, he recognized the seeds of growth deep within him, laying the groundwork for transformation. Yet, as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in bold strokes of orange and pink, a weight settled in his chest. The question that remained was how to exude this newfound confidence in the face of inevitable familial constraints, and when the time would come to confront them. As they exchanged plans for a second meetup, Daniel felt emboldened yet wary. What if he could push forward, continue breaking the mold? What awaited him around the corner of this unexpected connection? The last sip of his drink felt like a prelude to revelation, a crossing point towards embracing not just opportunity, but authenticity. Would he dare to dismantle the carefully assembled expectations of his family for the sake of aspiration?
The thought clung to him as an untethered question spiraling toward the next moment of decision. Daniel found himself in a state of restless excitement as he navigated through the bustling streets on his way home. The late afternoon sun dipped behind the distant skyline, casting long shadows that mirrored his introspection. His encounter with Sarah had ignited a spark within him, compelling him to confront the tightly wound expectations he had carried for so long. Yet the cacophony of thoughts racing through his mind threatened to push him back into complacency. The overwhelming relief and novelty of their conversation began to mingle with the chilling realization that change would not come easy. Would he genuinely be able to honor his artistic pursuits, or would the embedded whispers of his family's ambitions pull him back to the predictable path, the one paved with prestige and security? The juxtaposition was stark. To pull away from the family narrative, or to obediently continue in the roles assigned to him since childhood. "Just do it," he muttered to himself as he entered his home, the echoes of his own voice feeling foreign yet encouraging. He paused in the hallway, hands resting against the cool wall as he mentally prepared for what awaited him. The stillness before he stepped into the living room felt monumental, like balancing on the precipice of a decision that had the power to reshape his life. The familiar sense of home wafted through the air, but instead of comfort, today they triggered the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. His parents were seated comfortably on the couch, engrossed in a discussion about his father's latest business venture. They looked up as he entered, their warmth unearthing a measure of guilt for what he was contemplating. "Daniel, you're back early. How was your day?" his mother chirped, her eyes bright with genuine curiosity. "Fine," he replied, forcing the word out while feeling the weight of unspoken truth resting heavily on his chest. "Just fine," his father chimed in, his expression shifting from joy to mild disappointment. "You know, son, you're at an age where you should be making connections, planning for your future." The words hit Daniel like a cold wave, dredging up the weight of expectations. He could feel the walls of the carefully structured life they envisioned for him closing in, yet the thought of squelching the budding dreams within him ignited a flicker of rebellion. "Actually, I've been thinking about trying my hand at some of my drawings," he blurted, surprising both himself and his parents. There it was, the words that could break the generational mold he had felt shackled by for so long. The room fell silent. His mother exchanged a glance with her father, whose lips pressed into a tight line, revealing uncertainty and fleeting disapproval. "Drawing? Is that really practical?" "I thought you'd want to pursue something more aligned with business," his father said, an undertone of doubt evident. "I know what's expected, Dad, but I need to explore what's right for me," Daniel said, finding courage in the brief moment of connection he had shared with Sarah. "Art is something I've always loved." His father leaned back, narrowing his eyes. "You know we just want what's best for you. A business career provides stability." The tension thickened, coiling around them, yet Daniel clung to his moment of resolve. Could he articulate the difference between pursuing stability and discovering happiness? Before he could formulate his thoughts into articulate words, he felt a shift within himself. Sarah's voice from earlier echoed in his mind. "Different can be good. I need to figure out who I am outside of what you want me to be," he finally said, his heart thundering yet resolute. His mother's eyes softened, but the battle in his father's gaze hardened. This was confrontation. It was both terrifying and liberating. "And how long do you plan to explore?"
his father asked, arms crossed defensively. Long enough to find my path, Daniel responded, the trembling in his voice masking an undercurrent of determination. The response hung between them, a catalyst for future conversations. Could he maintain this newfound assertiveness when reality pressed in relentlessly? As he retreated to his room, the weight of uncertainty loomed larger than ever. Would he sustain this momentum, or would the expectations tether him back to the brink of conformity? Daniel could feel the tension bubbling. This was a moment for transformation, but at what cost? The next day loomed, an opportunity for him to present his artistic ideas to Sarah. If he were to confront his fears head-on, what would happen when their worlds intersected again? What if sharing something deeper transformed their connection? Emboldened yet uncertain, he wondered whether he was prepared to take this leap of faith. The pulse of creation beckoned him, but would he have the courage to stand firm in the midst of familial pressure? The question lingered, an urgent whisper, as he settled into the night restless with potential and resolute. The morning dawned with a peculiar mix of promise and trepidation. Sunlight poured through Daniel's window, illuminating the sketches on his desk. Each line and shade represented fragments of the burgeoning artist within, yet the weight of his parents' expectations loomed heavily on his mind. Today he would meet Sarah, not just to share his ideas, but to unveil a part of himself that had long remained hidden. As he readied himself, Daniel's heart raced. The confrontation from the previous night replayed in his thoughts. The uncertainty still nagged at him, the sense of impending judgment from not only his parents, but from a world he had scarcely dared to engage with.
He questioned his readiness to fully embrace this new identity, the artist he had yearned to be. Yet the voice in his head whispered encouragement, a gentle nudge reminding him that revelation often comes cloaked in discomfort. Stepping outside, the air felt crisp, invigorating. Each breath seemed to clear the fog of doubt that had settled. Daniel made his way to the cafe where they had agreed to meet, anticipation driving his steps. The bustling environment of the cafe buzzed with conversations and laughter, an exhilarating backdrop to what felt like a pivotal moment in his life. When he arrived, Sarah was seated at a corner table, her sketchbook open, pencil gliding with an ease that fascinated him. As he approached, her head lifted, and her eyes sparkled with a warmth that instantly calmed his nerves. "Hey, I'm so glad you made it," she greeted, genuinely pleased. "Wouldn't miss it," Daniel replied, trying to project confidence while his heart hammered like a drum. As they spoke, the conversation flowed surprisingly well. They shared anecdotes from their artistic journeys, unveiling their passions and struggles. Daniel marveled at how effortlessly she expressed herself, her creative enthusiasm infectious. But lurking beneath the surface of their exchange was Daniel's mounting anxiety. He couldn't shake the feeling that a critical moment lay just ahead, the moment he would share his own sketches. "Do you want to see some of my work?" he asked, the words escaping before he could brace himself for potential scrutiny. As he fished out his drawings from his bag, his mind raced with worst-case scenarios. What if she didn't like them? What if they were amateurish compared to her talent? "Absolutely," she replied, leaning forward with sincere interest. With trembling hands, he laid out the drawings on the table. Each piece reflected fragments of his soul, a vulnerability he hadn't acknowledged until now. As they sat in silence, Sarah studied his work, her brows knitting together in concentration. The weight of her gaze felt like an eternity. "These are incredible," she finally said, lifting her eyes to meet his. "You have a unique perspective. I can see how much care you put into each piece." His chest loosened. The compliment struck a chord deep within him. "Really? You think so?" he stammered, incredulity lacing his voice. "Definitely. I mean, look at this one," she said, pointing to a landscape he had sketched. "There's such a depth to it, an almost hauntingly beautiful quality." Her enthusiasm ignited something within him, a flicker of belief that perhaps he was on the right path. They continued to discuss his work, her questions probing and thoughtful, and he found himself opening up about his aspirations. With every word he spoke, the shadows of doubt began to recede. Yet, even as excitement built, an unsettling realization lurked beneath the surface, the fear of returning to a life dictated by others.
The boundaries of his newfound freedom felt fragile. Daniel's thoughts spun. Could he keep pursuing his art in the midst of the pressure from home? The afternoon sped by, laughter and openness ebbing into something deeper. Yet as they left the cafe, Daniel sensed the familiar grip of anxiety drawing nearer.
the certainty of his impending family confrontation looming over him. The connection he felt with Sarah was undeniable, and she seemed to understand him in ways most did not. But what if embracing this relationship fortified his resolve in a way that would only serve to strengthen his rebellion against his family? As they walked down the street, Sarah turned to him, her expression earnest. "You know, you're meant for greatness in your art, Daniel. Keep pushing your boundaries. The world needs to see what you can do." Pulsing with possibility, yet gripped by doubt, Daniel understood that this was just the beginning. He had shared a piece of himself, but now reality awaited, with its ever-looming expectations. Would he stand firm in his newfound passion, or would he capitulate to the weight of family obligations? With those questions clawing at him, he stepped forward into uncertainty, determined yet hesitant as the path unfurled ahead. The moment had transformed him, but was he ready to embrace it fully? Tomorrow would bring the meeting with his parents, an inevitable reckoning. The stakes had never been higher, and Daniel could feel the anticipation building as he pondered the confrontation that lay ahead. Daniel awoke to a sudden jolt of realization. The sun's rays pierced through his curtains, highlighting the multitude of sketches strewn across his workspace, remnants of his quiet dreams and burgeoning ambition. The ticking of the clock echoed in the silence, a reminder that today was crucial, not just for his art, but for standing firm at the crossroads of expectation and identity. His parents had called the night before, their tone a mixture of concern and disappointment echoing through the phone. They wanted to discuss his future, as if his recent meeting with Sarah hadn't revealed enough. Their vision for him felt like chains, binding him to a life he hadn't agreed to live. He simply had to push back, to assert that his aspirations mattered. This internal conflict surged within him, raging against their prescribed path. He poured a cup of coffee, the ritual calming his nerves. Yet doubt still creeped in like an unwelcome shadow. What if he faltered? What if when faced with their disappointment, he succumbed to their will once more? The thought ignited a flicker of rebellion within him, a defiance that echoed the vibrant strokes of his brush on the canvas. He scribbled ideas in his sketchbook, envisioning an exhibition, a show celebrating authentic artistry, a narrative for the voice within him that was demanding attention. Each sketch flowed from his pen as if buoyed by a resolve to step away from the expectations that constrained him.
They were wild, bold designs, unfettered by the conventions he had been taught to adhere to. It felt exhilarating, yet terrifying. He had to prepare for the confrontation that awaited him at dinner. As evening approached, he dressed deliberately, donning a shirt that felt authentically him rather than a lifeless collocation of colors. He caught his reflection and saw someone on the cusp of transformation. The dinner table set before him glistened, laden with the comforts of home. His parents arrived first, their expressions betraying a mix of love and concern. He could feel the tension building as they engaged in small talk, the polite veneer masking deeper currents of disapproval. Finally, as they settled into conversation, Daniel took a deep breath, intent on shattering the veneer that hovered between them. "I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do," he began, his voice steady yet laced with an edge of vulnerability. His mother looked up, her fork pausing in midair. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "I want to pursue my art seriously. I know this isn't what you envisioned for me, but—" He steadied himself. "It feels right. It's who I am." His father's reaction was immediate, the air thickening with disbelief. "Daniel, you mean to tell me that you think you can just disregard our plans for you? A career in art won't pay the bills. It's not practical. You need to think about your future." Anger surged within him, and he fought to temper it, clenching his fist under the table. "But it's my future, Dad. I can't compromise on what makes me feel alive. Art is my way of seeing the world." His mother intervened, concern washing over her features. "Honey, we're only looking out for you. You need stability." "Stability?" he interrupted, emboldened by the resonance of his own desire. "It's about having the freedom to pursue what drives you." Silence enveloped the table as his words lingered in the air. The gravity of his declaration weighed heavily on their reactions, but for Daniel it felt like liberation. He had finally stood up. "What are you saying, Daniel?" his father pressed.
the disbelief palpable. "Are you really willing to throw everything away?" "No," Daniel replied, the tremor of uncertainty fading. "I'm willing to fight for what I want. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing to invest in myself. This is who I am." There was a heavy silence, charged with unresolved emotions, as their contrasting visions for his life hung in the air. Daniel could feel the life he envisioned pulling him forward, a stark contrast to what had been laid out for him. He left the table with a mixture of exhilaration and dread coursing through him, each step away from the kitchen solidifying his resolve. The discussion had ignited a flame, but he could still see the glare of uncertainty reflecting in his parents' eyes. What would this newfound determination cost him?
How deep would the rift go? As he consoled himself in the sanctuary of his art room, the echoes of their skepticism rattled through him. Could he forge ahead, despite the turbulence that lay ahead? Would he reclaim his passion, or would the weight of expectation pull him back into the abyss of conformity? The answers loomed ahead, as Daniel prepared to confront the shadows of his past while moving towards his illuminating future. How far could he go with this newfound strength? The moment of truth was approaching, and Daniel could sense the ground shifting beneath him. Daniel spent the following days mired in a cyclone of uncertainty and possibility. The exhilaration of asserting himself collided with lingering doubt, creating a whirlwind of emotion that colored his thoughts. Each morning he sat in his room, sketches surrounding him like a chaotic gallery of his aspirations, ponderously contemplating the next steps towards his first exhibition. He knew he had to overcome the dual challenges of self-doubt and familial expectations. The thought of his parents' disappointment still unsettled him, a constant reminder that not everyone would understand or accept his choices. But with each stroke of his brush, he felt a sense of clarity emerging. The vivid colors he mixed on his palette seemed to reflect his inner turmoil, a spectrum that extended from fear to fierce determination. He began to dedicate whole afternoons to painting, allowing the act to center him. Slowly, the momentum he had needed began to build. It wasn't merely about defiance, it was about finding his voice and understanding how to express it. Art became his language, a dialogue with the world that pushed through the confines he had always known. He painted with passion he hadn't known he possessed, revealing layers of himself that had long been buried under expectations. Yet with each piece he completed, the looming question remained: would they ever comprehend this journey? Would they ever accept his determination? He sought answers in every brushstroke and struggled to silence the voice in his head that whispered doubts about the practicality of his dreams. One night, in a fit of inspiration, Daniel crafted an audacious piece. It was a bold portrayal of paradox, his fear captured in dark swirling strokes, enveloping vibrant hues representing hope and ambition. He titled it Confronting Shadows, a representation of his emotional landscape, a blend of terror and exhilaration intertwined with his future dreams. As he stepped back to contemplate his work, he felt a surge of confidence unlike any he had experienced before. This was more than art. This was declaration, a manifesto of his intent to forge a path solely his own. Emboldened, he decided to reach out to a local gallery, known for promoting emerging artists. His heart raced at the thought of showcasing his work publicly. After meticulously drafting an email outlining his vision, he hit send.
At that moment, adrenaline coursed through him. He was taking another leap. Days turned into a week, and as Daniel resolved to hold on to this momentum, he fell into a new routine. He shared snippets of his artworks on social media, gaining traction and feedback he hadn't anticipated. Each comment ignited a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, he was not alone on this journey. Yet within this newfound liberation lurked another type of pressure. The attention his work generated grew louder, demanding he prove his commitment and talent. Fear of failure began to coexist with his ambition. Could his success withstand the weight of expectation from not only his parents, but also this newfound audience? The percussive sound of notifications on his phone became both a source of inspiration and anxiety. There were days when the feedback fueled him, and others when it felt suffocating, a reminder of the stakes he had unknowingly raised. Then, one evening, as he painted during the golden hour, light spilling into his room, his phone chimed with an email notification. It was from the gallery. His heart raced as he opened it, his breath catching as he absorbed the words, an invitation to discuss a possible showcase. The gravity of the email settled within him, a paradox of excitement and anxiety, threatening to tip the balance of his newfound world. But as he savored this moment of potential opportunity, Daniel was left questioning, was this manifestation of his art truly free from the weight of expectation?
Or was he stepping into a different box, bound by a new set of criteria that could redefine who he was? As the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating his art, Daniel realized that the real battle lay just beyond this threshold of recognition. What did success and authenticity mean when intertwined with external validation? He would soon find out, but at what cost? The next chapter loomed ahead, an impending confrontation with the world outside his studio. Would he embrace this opportunity, or would the shadows of doubt continue to haunt him? Only time would tell as he prepared to face the unknown. Daniel awoke with the sunlight filtering through his window, illuminating the canvases that surrounded him, each one a testament to his journey. Today felt different, the weight of the gallery's email pressing heavily on his mind. The opportunity lay tantalizingly close, yet the fear of failure loomed larger than ever. It was time to get ready to face not just the gallery, but also the doubts that continued to gnaw at him. In the mirror, he noticed how tired he looked. Shadows lingered beneath his eyes, marking the hours spent translating his chaotic thoughts into tangible art. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair, forcing himself to focus. Today was about presentation. It would be the first impression of Daniel the artist, not merely Daniel the son. This realization ignited a flicker of determination within him.
He donned his best outfit, a crisp shirt that felt foreign against his skin, but he needed to rise to this occasion. After a quick breakfast that did little to quell his nerves, he grabbed his phone, scrolling through messages of support from friends and followers. The encouragement fortified him, inching his confidence upward, yet another wave of doubt washed over him. Would they be disappointed if he faltered? As he walked to the gallery, he couldn't shake the sensation of stepping into a spotlight. The chatter around him, the ambient noise of the street, felt muted, each sound weighed down by the gravity of his thoughts. He recalled his parents' faces, the discontent expressed in their brows when he first mentioned pursuing art. It was a reminder of high expectations, and the fear of disappointing them consumed him anew. Arriving at the gallery, he hesitated before pushing through the doors. The air inside hummed with vibrant energy, artists and patrons mingling beneath the watchful eye of impressive artworks. His heart raced. Here was the intersection of ambition and fear, where creative souls gathered to confront their own interpretations of success. Daniel took a deep breath and stepped further inside, introducing himself to the gallery owner, a sharp-eyed woman named Carla. Her enthusiasm was palpable as she examined his portfolio, but he found it difficult to focus on her words amid his own spiraling thoughts. He felt the flutter of vulnerability as she pointed out the nuances in his paintings, articulating what he had struggled to express in words. "You have a unique perspective, Daniel. This piece, Confronting Shadows, it resonates deeply. Your emotions are there, raw and real," she said. Her enthusiasm lifted the fog that had clouded his mind. For the first time, he dared to look at his art through someone else's lens. They discussed the elements of his work, and he realized that his feelings, once stifled, had given birth to something meaningful. That insight began to unravel the tightly wound coil of pressure. Maybe, just maybe, art was not merely about his expectations or others, but rather a means of connection. As they continued to talk, Daniel felt an unexpected comfort. Perhaps he didn't have to carry the weight of validation alone. Each shared moment felt like a bridge, linking his internal battle with the outside world, a realization that authenticity often comes with vulnerability. But as the conversation deepened, the unmistakable question hovered. How would he maintain this momentum? What if the recognition brought expectations he felt unprepared to meet? In the midst of their exchange, Carla leaned closer, her voice dropping. "I see potential in you, Daniel, but this journey requires vulnerability. Are you ready to truly share yourself?" The question pierced through his carefully constructed kitchen of anxieties, leaving him momentarily speechless. For a moment, Daniel contemplated whether he would let down his guard and allow himself to be seen raw and unfiltered by the world. Would he grasp at this opportunity, shedding the layers of fear constraining him? Facing the reality of stepping into a new role, Daniel realized the answer might redefine not just his art, but also his very sense of self. And as he stood there, poised on the edge of possibility, he felt a new question crystallizing. Could he embrace the power of vulnerability without succumbing to the shackles of expectation? The decision loomed large, and with it came a daunting truth. The time had come to confront not only the world, but the weight of his own identity. In the weeks that followed, Daniel immersed himself in preparations and revelations that would ultimately reshape his life. The gallery had agreed to showcase his work,
And with each passing day, he felt the weight of that opportunity shift from dread to empowerment. No longer was he just the millionaire's son, he was Daniel the artist, a title he began to embrace fully. The studio became his sanctuary, and each painting he completed was tinged with the vibrant reflections of his journey. He poured his heart into each stroke, transforming fear into color and uncertainty into depth. The tangible results were visible not only in his art, but in the unwavering resolve that filled his being. Repeatedly, he reminded himself that he was recounting his truth, unearthing a potential that had long remained dormant under layers of expectation. The day of the exhibition arrived with an electric buzz of anticipation swarming through him. Daniel dressed with care, choosing attire that felt entirely his own, an expression of who he was now, not just a reflection of familial expectations. With a final glance in the mirror, he felt a sense of pride surge through him. He had committed to this path, and today was about proving that commitment to himself. At the gallery, the air was alive with art enthusiasts, critics, and curious onlookers. For one of the first times in his life, he felt the tug of excitement overriding his anxiety. He had taken the leap, and now his journey would unfold before an audience. Each brushstroke told a story. Each canvas was a documented chapter of his evolution. As guests milled about, he tracked their reactions, watching how they were drawn to certain pieces, seeing their expressions of affinity and understanding. As Sarah arrived, her presence launched a warmth through him that felt reassuring, a grounding force amid the whirlwind of activity. "You did it, Daniel. This is amazing," she exclaimed, her eyes wide as she took in the expressions and emotions folded within his art. "Thank you, Sarah. It's overwhelming to see it all come together," he replied, the tremor of vulnerability eclipsed by the glow of pride and accomplishment. As the evening wore on, the conversations flowed like the fine wine being poured, and Daniel began to open up more.
He spoke passionately about his inspirations, the struggles of stepping away from expectations, and how art became his form of rebellion, his voice when silence threatened to consume him. People listened, really listened, and he found genuine connections in these exchanges, connections built upon shared struggles, triumphs, and aspirations. When the night unfolded toward its close, he received unexpected praise from a notable art critic who had been discreetly observing from a distance. "You have a remarkable ability to convey intense emotion through your work, Daniel. Your art raises questions that resonate on multiple levels," they acknowledged, their words lifting the final shackles of anxiety that had gripped him since starting this journey. For the first time, Daniel understood that achieving success was not solely about gaining approval, but about finding one's own truth and expressing it amid the cacophony of opinions. As the exhibition closed, his heart swelled not just with validation, but with the deep-seated joy of knowing he had chosen authenticity, an unwavering commitment to his craft, regardless of expectations. In the weeks that followed, Daniel solidified his artistic identity. He continued to develop his skills and engage with the art community, opening up dialogues that sparked inspiration and growth. His art began to gain momentum, leading to commissions, opportunities for partnerships, and invitations to collaborate with other artists. Most importantly, he discovered a profound sense of belonging, both in the art world and within himself. Yet the most rewarding achievement was reflected in his relationship with his parents, where he began to redefine boundaries with honesty. He initiated conversations filled with courage, explaining that he understood their concerns rooted in love. "I appreciate your support, but I need to walk my own path," he articulated. Their resistance softened as they witnessed his unwavering commitment and the fulfillment that radiated from his very essence. Daniel felt a shift within the family dynamic, as if they were learning to trust his judgment. Their initial fears slowly transformed, allowing for genuine conversations about passions, art, and life choices. For the first time, he didn't just feel like his parents' son, he felt respected as an independent adult pursuing his truth. As days faded into months, Daniel finally realized that ambition, passion, and courage reside within him. He had conquered the walls built from expectation, fear, and doubt. By forging his path as an artist while nurturing authentic relationships with those he loved, Daniel emerged transformed, confident, fulfilled, and recognized not just as the wealthy heir, but as a creator contributing meaningfully to a world he had once felt estranged from. Standing in front of his latest piece, he felt a sense of closure wash over him. This journey was merely the beginning. Every future canvas held limitless potential for growth and expression, each stroke a testament to his evolution, a celebration of his unique voice. You need to subscribe now so that you never miss the next exclusive emotional stories we bring to life.
Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and fuel more narratives of overcoming. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Daniel's journey. Let's connect through reflection. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this empowering conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Transform the dialogue of dreams into reality.